I am Christy Thompson, 34 years old. My grandmother taught me everything about real estate investing, a passion that became my secret path to success. What started with her modest inheritance grew into something my family never imagined. They always underestimated me, especially my father, who favored my brother Adam his entire life. When they called an emergency family meeting last month, I had no idea they planned to take away my home. I quietly sat there as they revealed their betrayal, unaware of who I had become. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. If you enjoy stories about standing up for yourself, hit that subscribe button and join me as I reveal how I confronted my family's shocking betrayal. Growing up in Seattle during the 90s, our family appeared perfectly normal from the outside. My father Thomas worked as a bank manager, while my mother Linda stayed home to raise me, my older brother Adam, and my younger sister Jessica. We lived comfortably in a middle-class neighborhood, with good schools and friendly neighbors. But beneath that ordinary facade, the family dynamics told a different story. From my earliest memories, it was clear that Adam was the golden child. Whether it was his little league games, science projects, or simply his opinions at the dinner table, my father treated everything Adam did with special attention and praise. I still remember the Christmas when we were teenagers, and Adam received a brand new laptop while Jessica and I got sweaters. When I questioned the difference, my father simply said, "Your brother is going to college soon. He needs it more than you girls do." My mother rarely challenged these decisions. She would offer private reassurances later. "Your father means well," or "That's just how he is." But she never openly disagreed with him. Over time, this pattern became our family's unspoken reality. The one person who saw me clearly was my grandmother Eleanor, my mother's mother. She lived just 20 minutes away in a modest bungalow that she had purchased in the 60s. While my parents focused on Adam, I spent weekends with Grandma Eleanor initially, just to escape the family dynamic, but eventually because of our genuine connection. "People will always underestimate a quiet woman," she told me once while showing me how to patch a hole in her kitchen wall. "That gives us the advantage of surprise." Grandma Eleanor had been widowed young and supported herself through smart property decisions. She never remarried, saying she preferred the company of real estate contracts to most men. She taught me to look at neighborhoods to understand property value trends, and most importantly, to recognize opportunity where others saw only problems. "That cracked foundation everyone's afraid of," she would say. "That's just a discount on a house in a neighborhood that's about to boom." And my parents discouraged my interest in real estate, calling it too risky whenever I mentioned it at dinner. My father would launch into lectures about the stability of traditional banking careers. "Property values fluctuate," he would warn. "Just look at the market crashes. People lose everything gambling on real estate." But Grandma Eleanor showed me her records, how she had weathered market changes by being smart, not fearful. "The key," she explained, "is to never extend yourself so far that one bad turn ruins you." She had started with one small property, lived frugally, saved aggressively, and expanded slowly. By the time I knew her, she owned 4 rental properties besides her home, all mortgage-free. In my senior year of high school, when everyone expected me to follow Adam to the state university, I announced I was attending the local community college for business studies. My father didn't hide his disappointment. "Community college is fine for some people," he said with a tight smile. "But you're smart enough for University, Christy. We expected better." I didn't tell him that my choice was strategic. The community college offered specialized courses in real estate management, and the lower tuition meant I could work part-time at a local real estate office, a job Grandma Eleanor had helped me secure. While Adam partied at university and accumulated student loans, I was learning the business from the inside, making connections, and saving nearly every dollar I earned. During my second year of college, Grandma Eleanor's health began to decline. I started visiting daily, helping with her medications and household tasks. During those quiet evenings, she shared more of her wisdom. "I've watched you, Christy," she told me one night. "You have good instincts and patience. Most people rush into bad deals because they're eager to prove something. You wait for the right opportunity." As her condition worsened, she began organizing her affairs with typical practicality. "I'm not leaving much," she said, "but what I have is yours. The others have never shown interest in what matters to me." I protested, uncomfortable discussing her death, but she was insistent. Your father thinks real estate is a gamble because he's never understood it, but you do. You'll know what to do with my house when the time comes. She passed away peacefully that winter. The family gathered for the funeral, where my father gave a polite but distant eulogy about his mother-in-law. 2 weeks later, we met with her attorney for the reading of the will. To everyone's surprise except mine, Grandma Eleanor had left her house and 2 of her rental properties to me. The other properties went to charity. My father couldn't hide his shock. She had rental properties, he asked the attorney. Why weren't we informed of these assets before? The attorney, an older woman who had clearly been friends with my grandmother, smiled thinly. Mrs. Thompson was a very private person about her finances, as was her right. On the drive home, my father's initial shock turned to concern about my burden. That old house needs so much work, he said, shaking his head. And being a landlord is a headache you don't need at your age. We should talk about selling everything and putting the money somewhere safe. I think I'll hold on to them for now, I said quietly. Grandma wanted me to have them for a reason. My father laughed, not unkindly, but dismissively. You're 22, Christy. What do you know about managing properties? Trust me, it's best to cash out now. That conversation cemented my decision. The next week, I moved my few belongings into Grandma Eleanor's bungalow and began the next chapter of my life. My first night in Grandma Eleanor's house. My house. I cried. Not from sadness exactly, but from the overwhelming sense of possibility. The house needed work, no question about it. The plumbing groaned, the electrical system was outdated, and the kitchen hadn't been updated since the 80s. But the bones were solid, and the location had only improved over the decades as Seattle expanded. I started small, watching endless home improvement videos online and tackling the projects I could handle myself. I painted every room, learned to replace light fixtures, and restored the original hardwood floors hidden under worn carpeting. For bigger jobs, I found contractors willing to teach me alongside their work, reducing their labor costs. I still worked full-time at the real estate office, absorbing everything I could about the market. 6 months after moving in, I earned my real estate license. My broker, impressed with my dedication, offered me a position as a junior agent. The timing couldn't have been better. Seattle's housing market was heating up as tech companies expanded their presence in the city. You have an advantage, my broker told me. You understand the neighborhoods other agents overlook, just like your grandmother did. My first year as an agent was a steep learning curve. I worked with modest properties in transitional neighborhoods, helping first-time homebuyers find value, where others saw only challenges. Every commission I earned went straight into a savings account dedicated to my next investment. Meanwhile, I managed the 2 rental properties my grandmother had left me. Both were small single-family homes with long-term tenants who had respected my grandmother. I maintained the reasonable rent she had set, focusing instead on improving the properties to increase their long-term value. By 24, I had saved enough for my first independent investment, a small, foreclosed duplex in an overlooked neighborhood near the community college. The property was a mess, vandalized, stripped of copper piping, and sporting a collapsed garage. But the area was showing early signs of revitalization, with a new transit line planned and small businesses opening nearby. I secured a loan using my existing properties as collateral and threw myself into the renovation. For 3 months, I worked my real estate job during the day and spent evenings and weekends at the duplex. I hired specialists only for electrical and plumbing work, doing everything else myself, or with help from handymen who taught me their skills. The transformation was remarkable. What had been an eyesore became a charming property with 2 modern units. I found tenants immediately, and the rental income more than covered the mortgage and expenses. More importantly, I had proven to myself that Grandma Eleanor's confidence wasn't misplaced. Over the next 5 years, I refined my strategy. I formed an LLC called Thompson Properties to manage my growing portfolio, which gave me a professional structure and some privacy. My family knew I worked in real estate, but had no idea I had moved from selling homes to investing in them. I developed a pattern: find distressed properties in neighborhoods with growth potential, renovate efficiently, and either rent them for steady income or resell for targeted profits that I immediately reinvested. Each success built my reputation with lenders, making subsequent deals easier to finance. By 28, I owned 7 residential properties and had successfully flipped 5 others. I began exploring commercial real estate, partnering with a more experienced investor on a small retail space that we renovated and leased to a popular local coffee chain. Not every investment succeeded. One property required extensive foundation repairs I hadn't anticipated, wiping out my expected profits. Another sat vacant for months after renovation, when the neighborhood recovery stalled. But these failures taught me to improve my property assessments and to build larger contingency funds into my projections. Throughout this growth, I maintained a deliberately modest lifestyle. I still lived in Grandma Eleanor's bungalow, though I had thoroughly modernized it. I drove a practical car and didn't flaunt my increasing wealth. This wasn't just frugality. I had discovered that being underestimated by sellers often led to better deals. When people saw a young woman on her own, they frequently assumed I had limited resources or experience, which gave me room to negotiate. By my 30th birthday, I had achieved what few knew: financial independence. My property portfolio generated enough income that I could have quit working entirely. Instead, I scaled back my real estate agent work to focus on managing and expanding my investments. I also began strategically acquiring properties in a promising area south of downtown. What had started as individual purchases became a block-by-block approach as I envisioned larger-scale redevelopment potential. When a local developer approached property owners about a multi-use project, I revealed that I owned 7 of the parcels he needed. The resulting partnership elevated my portfolio to a new level. All this growth happened without my family's knowledge. At holiday gatherings, I answered questions about my career, vaguely letting them assume I was simply a modestly successful real estate agent. I had long stopped seeking my father's approval or trying to compete with Adam's perpetually inflated achievements. There were practical reasons for my privacy. I didn't want to become the family bank, especially given Adam's history of financial troubles. But the truth was also simpler. They had never shown interest in this part of my life. And over time, I stopped expecting them to understand what I had built. By 34, my real estate empire included 27 residential units, 4 commercial properties, and partial ownership in 2 larger development projects. What had begun with Grandma Eleanor's modest inheritance had grown beyond anything she might have imagined. I sometimes wondered what she would think of my success, though I felt she somehow knew. "Property is just land and buildings," she used to say. "Until you see the possibilities nobody else does, then it becomes opportunity." While my professional life flourished, family relationships remained complicated. My father never outgrew his habit of favoring Adam, even as evidence mounted that his golden boy struggled with adult responsibilities. Adam had graduated from university with a business degree and immediately landed a job at a financial services company through one of our father's connections. His starting salary was impressive, and he quickly adopted an expensive lifestyle to match leasing a luxury apartment downtown and buying a German sports car. During family dinners, Adam dominated conversations with stories about client meetings, office politics, and his expanding professional network. My father listened with obvious pride, asking questions that allowed Adam to elaborate on his successes. When the conversation turned to my work, it was usually brief and perfunctory. "Christie's still selling houses," my father would summarize if anyone asked before returning attention to Adam. My sister Jessica followed a different path. After college, she became a graphic designer, married her longtime boyfriend, and settled in a nearby suburb. We maintained a friendly relationship, though not particularly close. Jessica seemed content to orbit our family dynamics without challenging them, occasionally sending me sympathetic glances during Adam's monologues. 3 years ago, cracks in Adam's perfect facade began to show. Rumors of layoffs at his company prompted a tense family dinner, where he defensively insisted his position was secure. 2 weeks later, he called our parents to announce he had decided to pursue other opportunities, corporate speak for being let go. My father immediately mobilized his network to find Adam a comparable position, but the financial sector was contracting. After 6 months of unemployment, Adam took a job with significantly lower pay and prestige. His lifestyle adjustments were minimal, however, and I suspected he was accumulating debt. During this period, my mother's health became a concern. Always thin, she lost more weight and complained of constant fatigue. After multiple doctor visits, she was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, requiring expensive medications and regular treatments. My father's health insurance covered most costs, but the copays and uncovered treatments strained their finances just as they approached retirement age. Family gatherings became more stressful. My father worried about both my mother's health and Adam's career setbacks grew irritable. Adam became defensive about financial topics. I tried offering suggestions about insurance negotiations and medical billing practices I'd learned through property management, but my father dismissed them. "The medical system is nothing like real estate, Christy," he said. "It's far more complicated." I stopped offering advice after that, though I quietly sent my mother information about patient advocacy services that later saved them thousands. Last year, Adam lost his second job when the company relocated to another state. He declined to move with them, citing our mother's health and his desire to stay close to family. What followed was another prolonged job search with increasingly desperate results. Meanwhile, the pressure on my parents' retirement savings grew. My father was 65 and planned to retire the following year, but now seemed uncertain. During phone calls, my mother mentioned tightening budgets and postponed plans. Neither directly asked for help, but the hints became more frequent. "Your father's worried about having enough for retirement," my mother said during one call. "Medical bills keep coming, and now with Adam needing a little help until he finds something suitable." I understood the implication. Adam was receiving financial support from our parents at a time when they should have been securing their retirement. I sent occasional gift cards for groceries or household items to my mother, knowing direct offers of money would offend my father. The situation came to a head 2 months ago. Adam, now unemployed for nearly a year, took a job selling insurance, a significant step down from his previous positions in finance. Within weeks, he was complaining about the commission structure and difficult clients. During Sunday dinner, he announced he was considering entrepreneurial opportunities instead. My father uncharacteristically showed frustration. "You need stability, son. Your mother and I can't keep helping indefinitely." Adam looked wounded. "I thought family supported each other through rough patches. I'm trying to find the right fit for my skills." The tension was thick enough to silence everyone until my mother changed the subject to safer territory. As I drove home that evening, I wondered how long this pattern could continue before something broke. 3 weeks later, I received a text from my father requesting my presence at a special family meeting the following Saturday. "Important family matters to discuss," he wrote. "Everyone must attend." The formal tone was unusual and concerning. My first thought was my mother's health had worsened, though recent updates had been cautiously positive. My second thought concerned their retirement plans. Perhaps they were finally going to discuss downsizing their house or moving to a less expensive area. What never occurred to me was that the meeting might be about my house, the home I had inherited from Grandma Eleanor, and transformed through years of loving restoration. The home that was not just my residence, but the foundation of everything I had built. As I drove to my parents' house that Saturday, a sense of unease settled over me. Something in my father's text message suggested a decision had already been made. I just didn't realize yet how directly it would affect me. The atmosphere was strange from the moment I arrived at my parents' suburban home. My mother greeted me with a tight hug that lasted too long, her thin frame seeming frailer than ever. My father was uncharacteristically quiet, busying himself with adjusting thermostat settings and checking his watch repeatedly. Adam arrived minutes after me, accompanied by his latest girlfriend, Melissa, whom I had met only twice before. Their presence surprised me. Family meetings typically didn't include non-family members. Jessica was already seated in the living room, her expression guarded as she offered me a brief smile. "Now that everyone's here, we should get started," my father announced once we had settled with coffee cups and the obligatory plate of my mother's homemade cookies that nobody touched. He stood before us like he was conducting a business meeting, shoulders squared and voice formal. "We've called you all together because our family is facing some significant challenges, and we need to discuss a solution that requires everyone's cooperation." My mother sat with her hands tightly clasped, eyes fixed on the carpet pattern. Jessica shifted uncomfortably on the couch beside me. "As you all know," my father continued, "Adam has been dealing with a difficult job market. Despite his qualifications and experience, he's had trouble finding a position that properly values his abilities." Adam nodded solemnly while his girlfriend patted his knee in support. What you may not know, my father said, his voice gaining confidence, is that Adam has been offered an exceptional opportunity with a financial consulting firm. The position comes with substantial salary and advancement potential, but it requires him to project a certain image to clients. I felt a creeping sense of dread as my father paused, looking directly at me for the first time since I had arrived. The issue is housing, he continued. Adam and Melissa have been living in that small apartment, which isn't suitable for entertaining clients or projecting the necessary professional image. They need a proper home in a respected neighborhood. My stomach tightened as I began to understand where this was heading. After careful consideration, my father announced, we believe the most sensible solution is for Adam and Melissa to move into your grandmother's house, Christy. The room fell silent. I stared at my father, waiting for additional explanation that would make this request seem less absurd. Your brother needs the mansion more than you do right now, he added, apparently mistaking my silence for consideration. His career advancement depends on it. Several thoughts collided in my mind simultaneously. First, my grandmother's bungalow was hardly a mansion when I inherited it, though my renovations had certainly increased its value and appeal. Second, the casual way my father phrased this not as a request, but as a decided matter was stunning. I'm sorry, I finally managed my voice calmer than I felt. You want me to give Adam my house, the house I've lived in for 12 years? My father nodded as if this were perfectly reasonable. We've discussed it extensively. The timing works well since the market is strong. You could easily find a nice apartment or smaller house that would be more appropriate for your situation. My situation? I echoed, genuinely confused. Well, yes, he continued. You're single, you work as a real estate agent, so you have access to good properties, and you don't need to entertain clients at home. Adam's career trajectory requires a certain lifestyle. I looked around the room, trying to gauge if everyone had lost their minds simultaneously. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes. Jessica looked mortified. Adam and his girlfriend sat with expectant expressions, as if waiting for me to acknowledge the obvious logic of this plan. We've actually already started working out the logistics, my father added, interpreting my shock as acceptance. Adam's friend runs a moving company and can offer a good rate. We thought 2 weeks should give you enough time to find a new place and pack. I felt like I had stepped into some alternate reality. You've arranged movers before even discussing this with me. We didn't want to burden you with details. My mother finally spoke, her voice gentle but firm. Thomas and I have been helping Adam look at some apartments for you. There's a nice complex not far from your office. The betrayal cut deeper with each word. Not only had they decided I should surrender my home to Adam, but they had been visiting my house without my knowledge, planning renovations, and researching places to relocate me, all without a single conversation with me. Have you been in my house recently? I asked, the pieces suddenly connecting. Adam nodded enthusiastically. Last weekend, we measured for furniture placement, and Melissa has some great ideas for updating the kitchen. The casual invasion of my privacy left me momentarily speechless. As I sat there, a bizarre calm descended over me. I found myself mentally reviewing my actual financial situation. The 24 properties I owned outright, the commercial developments, the millions in equity and cash reserves, all unknown to my family, who sat waiting for me to surrender my home for Adam's career image. In that moment, I realized two things with perfect clarity: how little my family really knew me, and how tired I was of being underestimated. No, I said simply. My father blinked in surprise. What do you mean no? I mean no. I'm not giving Adam my house, not in 2 weeks, not ever. The room erupted in protests. My father's face reddened as he spoke about family obligations and sacrifices. Adam complained that I was being selfish when his future was at stake. His girlfriend muttered something about family loyalty. I held up my hand until they fell silent. That house was Grandma Eleanor's gift to me. I've spent 12 years renovating it, caring for it, making it mine. It's not available for Adam's image management. Be reasonable, Christy, my father insisted. You can buy another place with your commission savings. Adam needs this specific house in this specific neighborhood for his career. And what about what I need? I countered. Has anyone at this table considered that? My mother attempted to mediate. Sweetie, we know you love that house, but sometimes we have to make sacrifices for family. Adam would do the same for you. I almost laughed at the absurdity of that statement. Would he? When has Adam ever sacrificed anything for me? The question hung in the air unanswered. This isn't up for debate, my father finally declared, reverting to his authoritative tone. The decision has been made with the family's best interests in mind. Something in me snapped at those words. 12 years of being dismissed, overlooked, and undervalued crystallized into a moment of perfect clarity. You've made a decision about my property without my input or consent. I said, my voice steady. That's not how this works. The house is mine. The answer is no. You're being incredibly selfish, Adam interjected. This opportunity could set me up for life and you're blocking it because you're attached to some old house. I turned to him directly. That old house is my home purchased with my grandmother's money, maintained with my effort, and legally owned by me alone. Your housing situation is your responsibility, not mine. My father tried a different approach. Christy, be practical. You have a decent job selling houses, but Adam's potential in finance far exceeds what you could earn. This is about maximizing family resources. Those words, decent job selling houses, were the final confirmation that my father had never bothered to understand my life or achievements. In that moment, I made a decision that would permanently alter our family dynamic. I reached for my phone. The family meeting had devolved into a tense standoff. My father continued arguing that I was being unreasonable, while Adam sulked dramatically, his girlfriend occasionally whispering in his ear. Jessica remained silent, but wide-eyed, watching the unprecedented confrontation unfold. Before we continue this discussion, I said calmly, unlocking my phone, I think there are some facts everyone should be aware of. My father sighed with exaggerated patience. What facts could possibly justify refusing to help your brother's career advancement? Without answering directly, I pulled up the website for Thompson Properties LLC and handed my phone to Jessica, knowing she was the most likely to process the information objectively. What am I looking at? She asked, scanning the professional site with its portfolio of properties. That's my company, I said simply. Jessica's expression shifted from confusion to surprise as she scrolled through pages showcasing apartment buildings, commercial developments, and residential properties across Seattle. Wait, you own all these properties? I do. My father frowned and took the phone from Jessica, studying the screen with increasing bewilderment. This must be the company you work for, he concluded, unable to reconcile this information with his fixed perception of me. No, Dad. I don't work for Thompson Properties. I am Thompson Properties. It's my company named after Grandma Eleanor Thompson. The silence that followed was profound. My mother's hand covered her mouth in shock. Adam leaned forward to see the phone screen, his expression shifting between disbelief and calculation. If this is some kind of joke, my father began. I opened my investment portfolio app and handed the phone back to him. No joke. These are my current holdings and their valuations. The grandmother's old house you're so eager to take from me was just the beginning. As my father stared at numbers that represented millions in assets, his face went through a remarkable series of transformations, disbelief, shock, and finally a dawning recognition. You've been investing in real estate, he managed finally. For 12 years, I confirmed. I used what Grandma Eleanor taught me, started with the properties she left me, and built from there. That decent job selling houses was just my beginning. I haven't worked as an agent for nearly 4 years now. Adam grabbed the phone from our father, scrolling frantically through the portfolio details. This can't be right, he insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. Every property on that list is mine, either owned outright or through my company, I explained. The house you're trying to take isn't just my home. It was the foundation that helped me build everything else. My mother found her voice at last. Why didn't you tell us, Christy? It was a fair question, but the answer was complicated. Would you have believed me? Anytime I tried discussing real estate investment in the past, Dad dismissed it as too risky and unwise. My father's expression hardened. If you've been this successful all along, you could certainly afford to help your brother. That makes your refusal even more selfish. That response confirmed I had made the right decision, keeping my success private. In my father's view, my achievements didn't merit recognition. They merely created a larger obligation to support Adam. My financial success doesn't create an obligation to give away my home, I said firmly. I've worked incredibly hard for everything I've built. I make careful decisions about my investments, and giving my house to Adam for the sake of appearances isn't one of them. Adam's girlfriend, who had been silent through this revelation, suddenly spoke up. But you have so many properties. Surely you could just give Adam and me one of the others if you're so attached to your current house. The entitled assumption was so breathtaking that even Jessica made a small, involuntary sound of disbelief. I don't give away assets I've worked for, I replied evenly. That's not how I built my business. My father shifted tactics, his expression softening into what I recognized as his negotiation face. Christy, this is wonderful news about your success. We're proud of what you've accomplished truly. But now that we know about your resources, perhaps we should discuss how you can help the family more broadly, your mother's medical expenses. Adam's career needs. I held up my hand, stopping him mid-sentence. I'm happy to discuss reasonable ways to help the family, but that conversation can't begin with demands for my home or assumptions about my obligations, and it certainly can't happen today after what's transpired. I stood gathering my purse and car keys. I think I need some time to process this meeting. We can talk again when everyone has had a chance to adjust their expectations. You can't just leave, my father protested. We haven't resolved anything. Actually, we have, I corrected him. I've resolved that I won't be giving my house to Adam. I've resolved that any future financial discussions will happen with full respect for my autonomy. And I've resolved that I need some space after discovering my family was planning to move me out of my own home without my consent. Jessica stood as well. I'll walk you out, she offered, surprising everyone, including myself. As we reached my car, Jessica spoke quietly. I had no idea they were going to ambush you like that. I thought the meeting was about Mom and Dad's retirement. You really didn't know about their plan? I asked, studying her face. God, no, she insisted. They told me about it 5 minutes before you arrived. I was in shock the whole time. I nodded, believing her. Jessica had always been the family peacekeeper, but never the instigator of drama. And I had absolutely no idea about your business success, she added. That's incredible, Christy. Truly. For the first time since arriving at my parents' house, I felt a genuine smile form. Thank you. It's been a long journey. I should have paid more attention, she admitted. I just got so used to our family's patterns that I stopped questioning them. It's not your responsibility to fix our family dynamics, I assured her. As I drove away, I felt simultaneously lighter and heavier. The secret I had carried for years was finally out, but the fallout was just beginning. My phone began buzzing with texts almost immediately, but I silenced it, needing time to process my own feelings before engaging with my family's reactions. The familiar streets of my neighborhood came into view, and as I pulled into the driveway of my beloved home, Grandma Eleanor's home, I felt a surge of gratitude for her wisdom and foresight. She had given me more than property. She had given me the tools to build my independence and the strength to protect it. Inside, I walked through rooms that reflected years of careful restoration and personal touches. This wasn't just real estate to me. It was the physical manifestation of my journey. I thought about Adam and my father viewing these same rooms with entitled calculation, measuring for furniture, and planning renovations as if my existence here was temporary and negotiable. The anger I had suppressed during the meeting finally surfaced. I allowed myself to feel it fully, not just for today's betrayal, but for years of being underestimated and overlooked. Then characteristically, I channeled that emotion into action. I spent the evening reorganizing my home office, securing important documents, and changing security codes. Then I drafted a clear professional email to my family, outlining boundaries for future discussions. It wasn't emotional or accusatory, simply factual and firm, the same tone I used in business negotiations. As I worked, my phone continued to light up with notifications. My father's texts grew increasingly demanding, then conciliatory, then demanding again. Adam alternated between apologies and explanations of why his need was still paramount. My mother sent worried messages about family harmony. Only Jessica's single text struck the right note. I'm here when you're ready to talk. No agenda, no expectations. Love you. That night, as I finally silenced my phone completely and prepared for bed, I realized the family dynamic had irrevocably changed. Whether that change would ultimately strengthen or fracture us remained to be seen. But for perhaps the first time, I would be engaging with my family from a position of acknowledged strength rather than assumed inferiority. The thought brought me an unexpected sense of peace as I drifted off to sleep in the home that was unquestionably, unshakably mine. The days following the disastrous family meeting brought a barrage of communication attempts. My father called repeatedly, leaving voicemails that evolved from commanding to cajoling. Adam sent texts ranging from defensive, "You completely embarrassed me in front of Melissa," to suddenly interested in my business acumen, "We should talk about investment strategies sometime." My mother left tearful messages about family healing. I maintained my distance, responding only with brief acknowledgments that I needed space. After a week, the intensity of their outreach began to wane, replaced by occasional check-ins that respected or at least acknowledged my request for time. Jessica was the exception. She texted every few days with no pressure, sometimes sharing funny observations about her day or memories from our childhood. After 2 weeks, I invited her for coffee at a neutral location, not my home, which still felt too raw to share with family. "They're in shock," Jessica confirmed as we settled at an outdoor cafe table. "Dad especially. I think his entire worldview got upended." "Because his daughter is successful?" I asked, stirring my latte. Jessica considered this. "Partly that, but also because he's always divided the world into providers and dependents. You were supposed to be in the second category, maybe becoming a provider for your own family someday, but never eclipsing him or Adam." Her insight surprised me. Jessica had always seemed oblivious to the deeper currents of our family dynamics. "You noticed all that?" I asked. She smiled ruefully. "Middle child, remember, I observe more than people realize. I just never had your courage to challenge the system." We talked for nearly 3 hours, really connecting for perhaps the first time as adults. Jessica shared her frustrations with being the family mediator and her admiration for my independence. I admitted my hurt at being perpetually underestimated and my complicated feelings about keeping my success secret for so long. "I want to see it," she said eventually. "Your empire, if you're comfortable sharing." The request touched me. No one in my family had ever shown genuine interest in what I built. The following weekend, I took Jessica on a driving tour of my properties, explaining my investment strategy and showing her the transformations from my before and after photo documentation. "This is incredible," she said repeatedly, especially when viewing a formerly abandoned warehouse I'd converted into thriving retail spaces. "You didn't just buy buildings, you reimagined them." Her understanding meant more than I expected. By the end of our tour, I felt ready to consider re-engaging with the rest of the family on my terms. I scheduled a meeting at my office rather than anyone's home. The location choice was deliberate, establishing a professional context for what needed to be a clear-headed discussion. I invited my parents and Adam, but asked that his girlfriend not attend, explaining that we needed to address family matters first. My office occupied the top floor of a historic building I'd purchased and renovated 3 years earlier. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of downtown Seattle, and the reception area displayed architectural models of my development projects. The setting communicated success without ostentation, exactly the image I wanted to project. When my family arrived, their reactions to the space told their own stories. My father surveyed everything with a calculating eye, as if reassessing my value in his mental ledger. My mother seemed overwhelmed, touching the leather furniture and art pieces with something like reverence. Adam's expression fluctuated between envy and opportunistic interest. "Thank you for coming," I began once we were settled in my conference room. "I think it's time we had an honest conversation about family expectations and boundaries." I outlined my position clearly. I valued family connection, but required respect for my autonomy and achievements. I would not be giving my house to Adam, nor would I become the family's financial solution for every problem. However, I was willing to help in structured, defined ways that promoted responsibility rather than dependence. What exactly does that mean? My father asked, his tone carefully neutral. It means I'm establishing a family education fund, I explained, revealing the first of several proposals I had prepared. I'll provide financial support for specific educational goals, college funds for future grandchildren, professional certifications, financial literacy courses. My mother looked relieved at this concrete offering. Adam seemed less impressed until I continued. For Adam specifically, I'm willing to help with job placement through my industry contacts and provide career counseling with a professional I know who specializes in finance careers. I'm also prepared to match any funds he saves toward a house down payment up to a predetermined limit. That's generous, Adam acknowledged, though I could see him calculating whether this was better or worse than simply being given a house. For you and Mom, I continued, addressing my father. I've researched some options for retirement planning and healthcare cost management. I'm willing to connect you with my financial advisor and cover the consultation fees. My father's pride visibly warred with practical considerations. We don't need charity, he began. It's not charity, I interrupted gently but firmly. It's family support with clear parameters, just like you've supported Adam through his challenges. The difference is that I'm being transparent about what I can offer and what I expect in return. What followed was the most honest family discussion we'd had in years, possibly ever. There were uncomfortable moments as old patterns reasserted themselves, my father attempting to take control, Adam deflecting responsibility, my mother trying to smooth tensions. But I maintained my position as an equal participant rather than the overlooked daughter, and gradually a new dynamic began to emerge. By the end of our 3-hour meeting, we had established preliminary agreements about family support and communication. Nothing was resolved perfectly, and years of entrenched behaviors wouldn't change overnight, but we had taken a first step toward a more balanced family relationship. As they prepared to leave, my father paused at the door. "Your grandmother would be proud," he said stiffly, the closest he could come to acknowledging he had misjudged me. "She always saw something in you that I missed." The admission limited as it was represented significant progress. Adam lingered after our parents left, examining a development model on display in my reception area. "I really messed up with the house thing," he admitted suddenly. "I got caught up in what I thought I deserved without considering what you had built." Yes, you did. I agreed, not softening the truth, but not attacking him either. "I'm not sure where I go from here," he confessed. "Watching you today, seeing all this," he gestured at my office. "It's made me realize I've been focusing on looking successful instead of building something real." It was perhaps the most self-aware statement I'd ever heard from my brother. "That's a good realization to have," I told him. "What you do with it is up to you." As I watched my family members drive away, I felt cautiously optimistic. The road ahead would have challenges as we all adjusted to new relationship dynamics, but the foundation for something healthier had been laid. I returned to my office and stood by the windows looking out at the city where I had quietly built my success. Somewhere in that view were dozens of properties that represented not just financial assets, but the manifestation of Grandma Eleanor's belief in me. "You were right, Grandma," I whispered to the glass. "Being underestimated can be an advantage as long as you know your own worth." The months following our office meeting brought gradual but significant changes to our family dynamic. Like any transformation, it wasn't always smooth or linear, but the overall trajectory moved toward healthier relationships. My father struggled the most with our new reality. After decades of being the unquestioned family authority, adapting to a relationship of equals proved challenging. He oscillated between grudging respect for my achievements and attempts to reassert control through unsolicited business advice or criticism disguised as concern. "Commercial real estate is headed for a correction," he announced during one dinner, despite having no experience in the field. "You should consider diversifying before the market turns." Rather than dismissing his comments as I might have previously, I engaged with them respectfully but confidently. "I appreciate your concern, Dad. My portfolio is already diversified across different property types and neighborhoods, specifically to buffer against market fluctuations." These exchanges gradually established a new pattern, where my expertise was acknowledged rather than dismissed. Progress came in small moments, my father asking genuine questions about a development project, or referencing something I'd explained previously, showing he had actually listened. My mother's adjustment was different. Once the initial shock faded, she seemed almost relieved that I had established independence. During a private lunch, she confessed, "I always worried about you being taken advantage of because you seem so agreeable. I should have recognized your strength sooner." Her health improved somewhat as family tensions eased, though her condition required ongoing management. I connected her with a patient advocate who helped navigate insurance complexities, reducing both costs and stress. This practical support meant more to her than grand gestures would have. Adam's transformation surprised me most. After our meeting, he actually enrolled in the financial literacy course I had offered to fund. Initially skeptical, he found it genuinely enlightening. "I've been living on the financial edge for years, despite a good income," he admitted during a rare one-on-one conversation. The course made me realize I was trying to maintain an image instead of building actual security. He accepted my offer of career counseling, which led to a position at a smaller financial firm with growth potential. The role came with less prestige than he was accustomed to seeking, but offered stability and advancement based on performance rather than appearances. Most importantly, he secured it through legitimate qualifications rather than family connections. Adam and Melissa eventually found a modest starter home they could actually afford, with a down payment partially matched by my promised funds after they saved diligently for 6 months. The house needed work, which initially disappointed Melissa, who had envisioned moving directly into a showcase home. "Remember when you thought your grandmother's house was just an old house?" I reminded him when he expressed frustration about renovation challenges. "Look at what it became after years of investment and care." Something about that perspective resonated with him. He began approaching the renovations as a long-term investment rather than an inconvenience, even asking for my advice on improvements that would build value over time. Jessica and I developed the closest relationship. Our conversations expanded beyond family matters to include our individual hopes and challenges. She confessed dissatisfaction with her graphic design career and a desire to explore more meaningful work. "I've always played it safe," she explained during one of our now regular coffee meetings. "Watching you build something you're passionate about made me realize I've been settling." I encouraged her to explore options and introduced her to contacts in creative fields that aligned with her interests. 6 months later, she accepted a position with a nonprofit arts organization that paid less than her corporate job but brought genuine fulfillment. The first holiday after our family reconfiguration tested our new dynamics. I hosted Thanksgiving at my home, the same house that had been the center of so much conflict. As my family entered spaces they had previously evaluated for their own occupation, the contrast in their behavior was striking. Where once they had measured for furniture placement, now they admired renovations and asked about architectural details. The meal wasn't perfect. Old tensions occasionally surfaced, particularly when my father reflexively dominated conversations, or when Adam momentarily slipped into entitled complaints about work challenges. But these moments were briefer and less charged than before, interrupted by new patterns of mutual respect we were all learning to practice. After dinner, I gave my family something I had never offered before: a tour of my home that included my office, where framed photographs documented the transformation of properties in my portfolio. For the first time, I shared the full story of each investment, the vision that had guided me, and the challenges I had overcome. My mother lingered over a photograph of me, standing proudly in front of my first independent property purchase covered in dust from renovation work. "You look so determined," she observed. "I wish I had seen that determination for what it was." "You see it now," I replied, and the simple acknowledgement felt healing for us both. Throughout this period of family reconciliation, I continued expanding my business with confidence that no longer required secrecy. I launched a mentorship program for women interested in real estate investment, remembering how valuable Grandma Eleanor's guidance had been for me. Teaching others reinforced my own knowledge and brought unexpected joy. 6 months after our office confrontation, I established the Eleanor Thompson Foundation for Financial Education, focusing particularly on young women from limited means. The foundation offered scholarships, workshops, and mentoring relationships with successful investors like myself. At the foundation's launch event, I invited my family to attend. Watching my father explain to attendees that he was Christy Thompson's father, with unmistakable pride, marked a profound shift from the man who had once dismissed my career as merely selling houses. The most meaningful change, however, came in quieter moments. When my mother called to share good news about her health instead of just calling when she needed something. When Adam texted to ask my opinion about a property investment rather than asking for money. When my father sent an article about women in commercial real estate with the simple note, "Thought of you." These small adjustments reflected a larger truth. Real family wealth had nothing to do with houses or investment portfolios. It lay in relationships built on genuine respect and understanding. One evening, nearly a year after the disastrous family meeting, I sat on my back porch watching the sunset. The garden I had painstakingly restored from Grandma Eleanor's original design was in full bloom, a living testament to patience and care. My phone buzzed with a message from Jessica sharing exciting news about her latest project, followed by a group text from my mother coordinating our next family dinner. In that moment, I felt a profound sense of peace. The journey from being underestimated to being recognized had been difficult but necessary. I had protected what was mine while finding ways to share my success meaningfully. Most importantly, I had discovered that standing firm in my own value had ultimately strengthened, rather than broken my family bonds. True wealth, I realized, wasn't just in the properties I owned, but in having the courage to value myself enough to build boundaries that allowed authentic connections to flourish. Grandma Eleanor had given me the foundation literally and figuratively, but I had built something beyond even her vision, both in business and in family relationships. As I watched the last light fade over my beloved home, my first and still most meaningful investment, I felt gratitude for the journey that had brought me here. From the painful family meeting where my father had tried to give away my house to the balanced relationships we were now building, every step had been necessary. Sometimes the most valuable property we can protect is our sense of self-worth. And sometimes the greatest investment we can make is in authentic connections that honor, rather than diminish who we truly are. What challenges have you faced with family members who didn't recognize your true value? Have you ever had to stand firm in a difficult family situation? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please subscribe, and share it with someone who might need encouragement to stand up for themselves. Remember that recognizing your own worth is the foundation of any successful life journey. Thank you for joining me today.